another team that's going to, slug their way through their schedule this year is New Bedford. Because they face a lot of top-rate talent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the schedule that they play is just so tough. And this year, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. They don't have a veteran team. Their only returning starter is a sophomore, Steve Wynn. He had a great year last year. He's going to be the go-to guy on offense. So there'll be a lot more responsibility, on the young man's shoulders. I interviewed him earlier this summer, and he comes from a basketball family. I know, he's on going all these basketball combines and different things. And I mean, he is a talent, but you need more than one player. And I guess the big question for New Bedford will be who fills in around him. I know John Gomes. In the winter, he doesn't do track so that he can play basketball. He really enjoys playing basketball. He's a senior this year. He'll play guard. They also have Danny DePina. He's a very athletic senior. He'll see some playing time. Two players that are pretty new to the program. One is sophomore John Fortes. Mm-hmm. He's a sophomore, and he's going to be a forward. And Lance Burlingham. He's a first-year player. But he's a 6'3" junior, so
can't coach that.
Sometimes size makes up for whatever your shortcomings are. But their strength will really be their defense. I mean, they play an in-your-face type of defense. They have pressure all the time on the ball. They lack the size, experience, and depth. But we'll see how it goes.
I think a lot of teams, local teams that are built offense first and kind of worry about the defense later, they're the teams that might hit the rough patches and struggle a bit, especially if the shots aren't falling. But a team like New Bedford that's always been that pressure defense and getting down low and taking guys hard, those teams are the ones that I worry less about, because if you can just hold them back, in your offense, if you can just get a little bit of offense, sometimes it's all you need. And, we've seen, like with the Celtics, mm-hmm. Defense first gets the job done, and I think New Bedford will have a good season.
Well, it's kind of silly to say this, but all you need to score is one more point than your opponents, and if you're holding them low, to low scoring, then...
And if you only get one basket, you get two of them, so it's even better.
Yeah.
Well, what about some of the other teams? We had so many teams last year that had good seasons, and one of those was Dartmouth.
Yeah. Dartmouth had a 15-7 record last year. This year it's a pretty young team. They graduated a bunch of the kids from that team, so they lack some varsity experience. But they're a pretty hard working group of kids. One is going to be kid to watch out for is Mike Granfeld. He was the quarterback on the football team. He's a senior, 6'5" forward. He's a nice shot around the basket, inside. Paul, is it Cucci? Is that how you say it? Cucci, yep. He is a senior. He's a good mid-range shooter. He's another one to watch out for. Chris Cole is a senior center. He's pretty, has a strong presence inside. And then, their shooter from the outside is Preston Labonte. He's a 5'11" senior guard. So it should be interesting to see how, they fill in the void, from a lot of the players that they graduated last year, and see if they can keep it going. But they do have some kids that are athletes that play other sports. So we'll see how they do this year. 15-7. I mean, that's kind of tough to repeat after mm-hmm. you lose a lot to graduation, but.
And some other strong teams include Old Colony.
Yeah, Old Colony. They had a great year last year. They were 17-3. The only thing is they graduated 8. Mm-hmm. So a lot of their team this year is going to be made up of junior varsity players. They don't really have a go-to player on offense. I know they played last week. They started earlier than a lot of the other teams, and they struggled to score points. But I think they held their opponent. I think it was under 50 points or something. So I mean, they are playing pretty strong defense. They're just having to find where the offense is coming from.
Sometimes, though, that can work to your advantage if you don't have a go-to guy and, you're kind of letting things develop more naturally. You might end up with better team offense that way.
Yeah.
And it's harder to pick one player to key in on, too, for the other defense.
That is a great point. But I still think that they're...
Just looking for the positives. That's all.
Well, I think they didn't... I don't think they hit 40 points last week. That's why I'm saying that...
Okay, well, then somebody does have to step up a little bit.
Yeah. Which, they have athletes to do it. I mean, some of these kids, they play soccer, they play football. Andrew Cordero, Alex Nelson, Neil O'Brien, Craig Pimentel, and Ted Mello. I mean, those are all kids that we've seen in other sports. So I mean, they do have some talented athletes. They just have to, I guess, find a shooting touch there. So we'll see how they do this year. 17-3 is a tough season to follow. Just as for Westport, Westport last year had a 18-3 record, quite impressive, and they do return a good number of players from last year's team. The only thing is that they lack size, and their bench is made up of mostly JV players. Mm-hmm. So most of their starters return, but some of their reserve players are kind of young. Some of the kids to watch out for: Adam Soares, he's a strong scorer. He's a junior forward. Josh Dietzman, he saw limited action last year, but the senior forward should have a presence this year and get some good time. Nick Fryer, he's a senior forward. He should step into a starting role this year, and he'll score some points and grab some rebounds. He's a good all around athlete. Plays soccer and baseball. Another one is Matt Medeiros. He's a senior guard. He does everything for them. They refer to him as Mr. Everything, but he is a great three-point shooter, so watch out for him from the outside. And Chris Rosa, another, multi-sport athlete, who in basketball is a solid shooter. I mean, I don't know if they're going to – I mean, I really think that they have a shot at repeating, last year's record or maybe even surpassing it. I mean,
and they have a fiery coach for sure in Scott Boudria, so he'll make sure he gets the most out of them.
Yeah.
And our final local team is Bishop Stang.
Yep.
And they look like they're returning a good number of players.
Yep. Last year they were above 500. They were 11-9. And they do have some strong players back. I guess their go-to player down low is Peter Melanson.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He's a 6'6" junior. So that
coach that.
Yeah, right. So I mean he'll have a big presence. In the post for them. Ted Bancroft. He's a 6'4" senior forward. He's pretty strong inside and outside. So he gives them kind of some options there. Harry Flynn. Who also plays football. He's a 6'4" senior. He's a solid rebounder, and he can score some points. So those are their three probably standout players that they have, but they also have some role players. So, I mean, they should have another solid year this year. I know, I think it's usually Fian is the team to beat, and they face some tough competition, but, they should have another solid year this year, make the tournament.
Definitely seems like it's going to be an exciting season